Good day, everyone. My name is Nicholas Sheppard. On behalf of Aunty J TV, I'll be conducting this interview. This evening, we have with us Miss de Verteuil. Miss de Verteuil, please introduce yourself.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Nicholas. My name is
Pleasure.
Judith de Verteuil, and I'm principal of two schools, Tidal Learning Center and Mozart School of Music and Chess.
Also, Miss de Verteuil, on Thursday, the 14th of April, the Junior Minister of Education presented a learning management system to the nation. What's your thoughts on this?
Yes, indeed. I took note of what was said, and I
Hmm.
recognize that in the main, the Ministry of Education is trying their best to reach our young people so that none of them will be left behind. However, in doing so, they have left out certain pockets of our young people that need to be educated. For example,
Hmm.
one of my principals, of which I am part of the Private Special Schools Association of Trinidad and Tobago, reminded me that while we have the academic side, which I represent, we have the vocational side that is yet to be represented. There are also comments from Ms. Mohammed from different areas. You have people, for example, from UE making comments. You have Ms. De Freitas making comments on behalf of tutor. And you
Okay.
will recognize that, for example, a contract was never done for the teachers to have this new, as it was, scope of works to do with the young people. You also have a lot of our young people who do not have access to ICT or computers or a smart device.
Yes.
And I do have a suggestion in that area that I would like to share with the nation I'm trying to
You
make.
please share with us.
Okay. For example, I would like to think that the average home would have a radio
Hmm.
and a television, if not both, at least one. A few years ago, I wouldn't say how many, but a few
Uh-huh.
years ago when I attended prime school, there was the school broadcasting service that would broadcast nationwide to every school 10 o'clock every morning.
Okay.
And that broadcast would cover educational items that the teacher would then reinforce in the classroom. It ranged from educational in terms of English A, English B, literature, and they also had things pertaining to agriculture and so on.
Right.
So I was wondering if that could be reintroduced, but this time they can do it through the TBC radio, the TBC
TBC
radio network.
Radio Network. Yeah, of course.
We no longer have 730 radio.
Yeah.
So it come through the Jagrati, the Skype, and the 730 radio stations now as it is in this reincarnation of the TBC network.
Right.
And they can broadcast at particular times. And curriculum officers, along with other technocrats at the ministry, could structure something so that the parents will know what time is the broadcast. And based on the time, whether it's for a primary school setting or for a secondary school child. And in that way, the children who are audio learners, who need to hear it to learn it,
Yeah.
will hear, and then they can repeat it on television. TTT is state owned, so they can repeat the program now with the visuals to go with it, so that those children who are visual learners can then see it to learn it.
Oh,
And then children who are read-write learners, because there are really four categories of learners. The
mm-hmm.
read-write learners would be able to see the text with a voice over reading the text to them.
Okay.
And then the clinic learners, that is those who need to touch it and feel it to learn it,
Mm-hmm.
will get that reinforcement with you informing the parents in advance what materials to keep on hand, whether it's the cotton orange or whatever you're showing percentages or you're showing tables or whatever,
Mm.
for them to have certain materials from the home available for when that lesson comes up, that the parent now will have a part to play in all of this.
Okay, great.
So truly between the radio and the television,
Mm-hmm.
content is shown without having to use a device, because the study shows, statistics shows
Uh-huh.
that small children will not use a device as we would like them to, because a lot of them cannot sit still.
Yeah, we know.
Short
We know the short attention span. Yeah.
attention.
Also, Ms. de Verteuil, what's your thoughts on the CXC? Sorry, the SEA being pushed back. What's your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, I have a suggestion again in terms of the SEA.
Hmm.
As you will recall, when you were in primary school, at the end of each term in standard one, you did an end of term test, not
Yes.
so?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Term one, two, three, they can find your average mark for that class. Go into standard two, average mark. Standard three, standard four. Get your average, and then get the average for all the 4 years. That percentage can then be used to place you in the secondary school without having to try
Oh.
exam
Yeah.
physics for a number of reasons. Some children freeze when they hear exam.
Yes.
Some children stress to do the exam. Some children, because of the parents and how the parents react to this one day, suppose they get up that morning and feeling well.
Yeah.
You see, everything hinges on this one day, whereas when you spread it out over a period of time, the child would have time to pick up, to improve. The
Yes.
teacher will have chance to change the teaching methods to see if it would help the child. So the child will have a longer period to improve the percentage instead of that exam that one day.
So similar to the tertiary education in retrospect, they over a period of time they are assessed on their studies, opposed to just having one day. Um, yeah.
Exactly. In secondary school, because what you have when you focus on exam, you
Hmm.
have children trying to copy the exam, to
Yeah.
cheat,
Yeah. Yeah.
and things like that, because it's all about the exam. Can I point out something to you about a study pertaining to exams?
Yeah.
The
Sure.
Education Council in Britain, 30 years ago, did a research on children and exams and so on, and they found that governments, politicians put too much emphasis on exam results rather than long-term education.
Oh,
And
okay.
this that is a misnomer. They ought not to do that. And that study came out 30 years ago. And yet we still have people today just looking at the percentage of children that pass, the percentage of boys that pass versus the girls, and
Mm.
making remarks and saying the boys have to step up to the plate and all that.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, one in every four boy that is born with a learning disability or a reading disorder,
Mm.
simply because the way their brain works versus the girls,
Mm.
right hemisphere, left hemisphere syndrome.
Yeah.
As a result, that is putting added pressure on the young men. And there is also a study done by Professor Sachs that shows that a lot of things in the society affects the development of young men and their brain versus girls, in terms of the video games that the boys play, in terms of the activities that some of them get involved in terms of the drugs that are sometimes prescribed for the young men when they are hyperactive and so on.
Mm.
And so the boys really are at a disadvantage. And then if the boys are in a classroom and they paint it pink, trust me, the study says they will be hyper. They would not settle in such a classroom.
Speaking about long terms, right here in Trinidad and Tobago, they have announced that they are going to cram 3 terms into two. What's your thoughts on this, Ms. de Verteuil?
Well, under normal, quote unquote, normal circumstances, the children who normally pick up and do well, that will be okay for them. What about the slow learner? What about the child that needs to have something repeated?
Okay.
In special schools, uh, our class is an hour and a half, one class, not 45 minutes, because they need twice as much time to cover the same amount of work. And
Right.
even then, still have to repeat on occasions. So the ones that are on the lower end of the strata, the ones that are dyslexic, and there are 3 levels of dyslexia, mild, medium, and severe. Then you have different levels of autism. You have children that are blind and visually impaired. Their work will have to be translated in Braille. You have those that cannot hear, and therefore they have to do sign language. So it's a lot. And remember, usually the ideal is for these children to have an aid, like somebody to assist them, to go to school with them as an aid. But that doesn't happen in Trinidad and Tobago most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I've noticed Mrs. De Freitas from Tuta speaking about teachers having to learn how to teach online. And she said, categorically of learning. What is this? What is
Oh,
categorical? Yeah.
yes. Pedagogy. Yes, yes. Pedagogy is really 10 specific areas that really speaks to the way a child is taught. You use a bit of psychology, a bit of sociology.
Okay.
And it speaks to the varied ways of learning. That is basically what she was trying to say. And she had also said that there is no contract. There need to be a contract with teachers. Ideally, we ought to have a homeschooling system. I mentioned to my colleague just recently that in Barbados, they started a homeschooling system in 2014. So what they did now because of COVID is simply upgraded their school homeschooling system to include everybody.
Right.
But homeschooling system must be under law. Therefore, the Education Act of Trinidad and Tobago of 2005, Section 3901, which speaks about children being at home, ought to be amended to include homeschooling with all the antecedents that needs to be covered under homeschooling. Because the parent, we need to get buy-in from the parents. The parents have to start keeping records to show the contact hours, which is the times of learning and the length of learning time that the child would have at home. Homeschooling is not just taking the academics from school and bringing it home. Yeah?
All right. Yeah, I agree with you totally. And last question, Ms. De Verteuil. What other suggestions do you have for re-education at this time?
What are my suggestions for? Could you
Yeah.
repeat that?
What is your suggestions for re-education at this time?
Oh, in terms of education at this time, they
Mm-hmm.
need to have a parallel system put in place to cater for the children under the special schools
Uh-huh.
because we have over 30 private special schools in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is apart from the 15 special schools under the Ministry of Education. So we need to deal with special children separate and apart from those that are what we would call mainstream that could handle the ICT, handle the computer, know how to get on the computer to do their classes. And remember, there's a difference between teaching and tutoring.
Yes.
Is when you have a classroom, 40, 45 children or 30 children, and you teach. And there are little quirks that you ought to know in terms of how to teach, in terms of classroom management, to
Right.
teach that. Tutoring is when you're dealing with 7, 8 children or less. Tutoring because it's more individual, more personalized teaching. So the part that the Minister Lovell spoke about, where the teacher helping to prepare content online, they are talking about tutoring. And so we have to make the distinction between tutoring and teaching, and we have to work in tandem with the teachers who can do so, because not all teachers are techno savvy.
Right.
You see, some teachers are old school.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right.
Just as you have some children who prefer the old school method, and that is why I spoke about the radio and television aspect, and those who prefer to go the techno way, and that will ease up the Ministry of Education from trying to find 60,000 tablets or computers or laptops or so on for the children that do not have.
Right. Well, Ms. De Verteuil, thanks for sharing. It's a pleasure having you here on Aunty J TV. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Nicholas Sheppard. Thanks, and do have a wonderful evening, Mr. Verteuil.
Thank you.
Take care.